folks. Here we are again. I read a book. I think I'm very slow. Every time I watch that Right Conscious channel, I'm like, man, this guy reads a lot. Is he writing? He also records videos, and I know that recording videos becomes its own kind of creativity suck in a way. Like, honestly, the time that I now spend recording videos was time I used to spend writing. I still write, but it does take away from that writing time sometimes. I know it. But the videos are kind of like teaching. I mean, like the experience of teaching a little bit in that it also like helps you develop your ideas and think about it. And I'm telling the story in second person. I mean, me. Oh, I just watched the most suspenseful, good movie. I was totally into it. Fall. Yikes. I was like watching The Walk. Get the heebie-jeebies. It's about two women stranded on top of a 2,000-foot tall radio tower. They're climbers. Excellent movie. The most scared I've been in a movie in a long time because it was that specific, like, edge of your seat. No. Like, I couldn't stop watching it. I watched it in one sitting. Anyway, this is not the fall. This is not fall. This is Jitterbug Perfume. I just read it. I gave it the taped up cover treatment, so this thing's like gonna last a while now. But I also marked it up in pencil. This whole collection is probably gonna look like this, but that's what I'm done with it. Taped up. When I read these older books, like I'm a chapter and an introduction into another old paperback, Green Mansions by W.H. Hudson, and I'm like, is this thing gonna fall apart as I read it? But I had like a journey with this book. It took me kind of a long time to read, but I think this guy is very much in the school of, I feel like he's in a lineage with like Jerzy Kosinski, particularly being there. That kind of like comedic, high concept thing. Not that Kosinski was always like that. And he's, immediately when I read the back cover of this, I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Richard Brautigan. And I love Richard Brautigan, but Richard Brautigan's like a dry wit compared to this guy. This guy's throwing everything at the wall. He's like Conan O'Brien or Jim Carrey, just like going off. Woo! There's a lot of bells and whistles here, and it really hit me as kind of zany for a little while. And I didn't read enough of it in a big enough chunk up front, and I was kind of put off by some of the elements of it. Like every time there's a New Orleans chapter, it's like, I do not love how the dialogue is transcribed. Hey, squirrel. Talking about Jitterbug Perfume, which you have read. All right, everyone, open your third eye and take in the telepathic cat messages that squirrel is beaming at you. That's her review. And I thought that was a pretty good review, and I liked how it contained a color I hadn't been previously aware of or able to perceive. Old squirrel, thanks for that. Some have called her a proud and noble beast, and I wouldn't argue. 10 out of 10, great cat. So yeah, I didn't like how he transcribed the dialogue in that part. I don't know. I thought it was real clever, but it's kind of like when you really meet like a high energy, cool person or something for the first time. For the first little while, it's like, you're wearing me out. And you kind of learn how they are and appreciate them and see that it's not all the time. It's just a lot. And I personally appreciate it a little bit sometimes when I realize that like the people are really trying, you know? I think about that Nietzsche quote, you see a man, I see an actor after his own ideal. Love that. Like when I used to work at this bookstore, Bookworks, the customers would come in and a lot of times they'd be really fake, but it was like nice fake. So I was like, they're trying. You know, you see a man, I see an actor after his own ideal. I love that. But that has nothing to do with this, or does it? It's a very interesting book. And I was kind of expecting it to be more like, I don't know, a zany 70s heist film or something like that, like Bunny O'Hare. And on some levels, it is. But I also thought about how the writer Jeff Smith took the character of Bone and the Bone family and made them like the stars of this big like Lord of the Rings epic with the comic form. And that had never really been done with comics before, just like one big giant story told like Lord of the Rings with comic characters. And I kind of feel like he did the same sort of extrapolation here with the form that Brautigan pioneered, which was generally a very slim form, books like Trout Fishing in America. There he is, good old Brautigan. His death was a sad one. It seemed like he had a lot of anger toward himself. And towards others, honestly. But he's a great writer. An interesting figure right there on the line between the San Francisco poet scene and the beats. Doing something new. There's a review on one, like a blurb on one of these books, or a book that I've had of his before, that says something like, someday there will be a type of writing like the novel is today, that'll just be called a Brodigan. And I kind of see what they mean, and I kind of think that this is kind of like an epic extrapolation of a Brodigan type form. You know, something. The Brodigan. This is fictional, and I feel like some of Brodigan's stuff is like creative nonfiction. Anyway, the story that really kicks the whole thing into gear about 60 or 70 pages in is this story of Alabar, this medieval king who goes through a million things and falls in with a group of, well, I don't know. He ends up deciding to live forever, but it's not like Tin Drum where he decides to never age. He decides to live forever, and the squirrel's licking this book. She loves it so much. Why are you licking it so much? Yum. And he has a lover and a partner for much of that time who also understands how to do the eternal thing. And Alabar and Kudra are really like the stars of this book. And it gets pretty wild. This is like an NC-17 rated book, easy. Anyway, I really started getting into it and getting into the guy's style. I liked it. This is part of the paperback project. I'm trying to read all the paperbacks on a case. It's going to take me 10 years at this rate. Wow, I've read all these. And these two. 8. But if you turn 8 on its side, it's infinity. So I've read infinity books. Wow. I'll do a video when I finish a whole shelf, because that'll be like a celebration. And it'll fill me with hope. And then I'll have a time frame I can take in times of times 5 and see how long this thing will take me. How squirrel sits. It's hilarious. Just follow her around. Look at her. She's so cute. But I think he has so many clever lines and things in here. I laughed out loud many times. I smiled many times. Yes, readers, I smiled. Squirrel, it's ridiculous. People are here for books, not for the cutest thing they've ever seen in their whole lives. Come on, kitty. This is too much, all right? People are on medications. You don't know what their medical histories are. You're too freaking adorable. Folks, just listen to this. Don't watch it. It's too much. Cuteness overload. Frankly, it's saccharine at this point. Oh, goodness. I mean, who would even want to see this except people collecting like precious moments figurines? And everybody. Oh. We should do a Q&A, but it'll just be all about the cats. Rope. The gods have a great sense of humor, don't they? If you lack the iron and the fizz to take control of your own life, if you insist on leaving your fate to the gods, then the gods will repay your weakness by having a grin or two at your expense. Should you fail to pilot your own ship, don't be surprised at what inappropriate port you find yourself docked. The dull and prosaic will be granted adventures that will dice their central nervous systems like an onion. Romantic dreamers will end up in the rope yard. You may protest that it is too much to ask of an undereducated 15-year-old girl that she defy her family, her society, her weighty cultural and religious heritage in order to pursue a dream that she doesn't really understand. Of course it is asking too much. The price of self-destiny is never cheap, and in certain situations it is unthinkable. But to achieve the marvelous, it is precisely the unthinkable that must be thought. Good stuff. Here's a great description of mountains. The mountains look like the white picket fence around the cottage of eternity, although Alabar clearly thought about them in another way entirely, because this is 1,000 years ago. Perhaps he thought of them as storehouses stocked with thunderclap hinges and earthquake parts and dusty bolts of lightning. Perhaps he saw them as just another opportunity for the gods to make him seem puny and weak and mortal. In any case, he stared at the peaks for a while, then he turned back to Kudra. I like this kind of meta, self-aware thing in writing. Before we reach the end of this paragraph. Glyptic means conserving, carving, or inscribing. Okay, here's like a far-out metaphor that just made me think interesting. So this character is named Value. She smiled, revealing a mouthful of small, iridescent teeth. If oysters drove cars, their hood ornaments would look like Value's smile. Like, that's a weird thought, man. What? You're weird. But then, here, an oyster Cadillac rolled into view. So like that's really interesting. I like this foghorn Mark Twain on the river. That's nice and simple, but I like that. Luke expelled such a geyser of smoke that had it come from a derailed tank car, the authorities would have immediately evacuated the neighborhood. He'll like return to whatever metaphor and play with it, and it's fun, you know, like refer back to it, like with that oyster thing. Speaking of the Paperback project, I was reminded of how Light had a soundtrack of humming bees. There were a lot of humming bees in this as well. I like the idea of having an aural motif to a piece of writing that occurs again and again that readers can hear in their minds. It's a different way of establishing tone, a secret tone hack. It also has olfactory references. Smell is weird. It never really like goes off trying to describe smell, but it has it describes it in a lot of different ways. It gets into like the science of the parts of the nose. Some fancy metaphorical passages. Kind of like American Gods a little bit. Pan is a part of it, but flickering. I started reading this because Chris from Liminal Spaces, the excellent sci-fi book channel, was reading it at the same time. He started it and did a video about it, so I'm like, I'm going to read it while he's reading it. And like I said, I struggled with it in the beginning, but it really won me over. Do I feel like it 100% stuck the landing? Not exactly. It has a very gross final chapter where, let's just say, it uses the process of defecation as a central metaphor. Well, we sip tea. We'll phrase it that way. Pinky's out. I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, hey, anything can be literary. But it also does have a light tone throughout. I think it has literary goals, but it does have a light tone. Like, there's a lot going on here. There's a big message. There's philosophies, plural, behind it. There's a real worldview presented here. I felt drawn into it in the same way I felt drawn into it to Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, which is a sci-fi book that really like has tons of research on like ancient Babylonian texts as a part of it. Very well, he'd lighten up. As a matter of fact, he felt as light as the bubbly froth that flew from the lips of the wolves. Whatever else his long, unprecedented life might have been, it had been fun. Fun. If others should find that appraisal shallow, frivolous, so be it. To him, it seemed now to largely have been some form of play. I feel that too, having grown up in a playground building family. My dad owning a playground company, that's crazy. Just a small regional one, and working on playground crews and all that stuff, I did that. And he vowed that in the future he would strive to keep that sense of play more in mind, for he'd grown convinced that play, more than piety, more than charity or vigilance, was what allowed human beings to transcend evil. I love when adults can still be playful. Like when I get yes-anded just by normal adults in my life, I'm like, yes, thank you. You should be all able to goof around. There's a Strunk-like figure in here. There are no such things as synonyms, he practically shouted. Some wild stuff. And Tom Robbins, from what I gather, was a far-out cat. Black squirrel. I love this passage. The minute you land in New Orleans, something wet and dark leaps on you. Oh, no, not this one. There's a previous one about it being like a dog's breath. But yeah, you can get an idea of Robbins here, too. A voice like coal being formed in the Cretaceous period. Like, that's just cool. You know, I have such an emphasis in my own writing on clarity and concision and, like, power that I forget. Maybe I don't think about it all that much about being playful. I let it happen when it happens, but I think I'm a serious person or something. Even though a lot of my stuff has humor in it. I don't know. But I feel like my de facto state right now is not just like goofing around. You know, purity of heart is to will one thing. That's like my favorite quote, you know. I love that. Kierkegaard. There's cool science-y ideas and stuff. Apparently some of the stuff about the reptilian to mammalian brain has since been scientifically disproven. I've been reading the comments on the Liminal Spaces videos. There's 2 videos over on the Liminal Spaces channel. Chris read the book and did a review of this, and it's good. It gave me some new thoughts after reading this. And if I hadn't read it, it would make me want to read it probably. And then he did one on the philosophy of lightening up, and he kind of unpacked that. That's not the only philosophy here. It's I don't know, it's about human progression, and it's great. It's got big sci-fi fantasy themes. Got big sci-fi themes in a way. Like that's, yeah, even though it's kind of more fantastical, and it's, yeah, I mean, her studio apartment where the refrigerator made noises at night like sea cows ruminating. She went to the school of Miss Crocodile, where she learned to walk backwards and skin black cats with her teeth. It's okay, Brisbane. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be afraid. It'll be all right. No one's gonna skin you. Yeah, I still gotta review these Lake Powell shelf books. Everett Ruiz, Playstone's books, and C. Gregory Crampton coming up later. Like, I thought about this book a lot. I think it's going to stay with me. I definitely want to read more Tom Robbins. I got the very good thought that I only get when I read really good stuff, where I think I need to read more of this person so I can be influenced by them. Like, I don't want a book this tone exactly. I feel like writers like, I don't know. He wouldn't be a bad crowd to be classed in with. I think he's pretty imaginative. And if he has other good books, he's a talent to be aware of and to watch. This is a 1984 novel. Looked up this cover artist and found some things, and now I can't remember any of it. It's been too long. So I've been reading this book for like 3 weeks, I think. But that was because Squirrel kept stealing it, and Prismo kept stealing it, and I said, it's my turn to read it. I'm reading it now. But they're greedy, and they don't understand about human morality. Give me the book. I'm trying to get Squirrel to put her paw on it so I can do a joke about swearing her in as president. Come on. Okay. Do you solemnly... Oh, she's attacking it. She's mad at this book. Keeps trying to get under her paw. But this book also reminded me... There we go. There we go. You're angry. This book took everything away from you. Show me that. Show me that emotion. The talent has absconded. So... I think I mentioned in another video that I've always wanted to read this book because when I was like, gosh, I must have been 19, maybe 20. But I was flying to Alaska for the very first time. Yeah, I didn't hitchhike up there. I hitchhiked down after I got up there. I just wanted to get up there as fast as possible. My friend Ray had offered me a place to stay. I didn't want to put a month of hitchhiking in front of it. I wanted to get there for the fishing season and try to get a commercial fishing job, which I did, immediately getting disenchanted and almost dying from sleep deprivation. No, not immediately. I worked for a month and a half at that place. And later I would also work in a cannery and at a dock weighing the fish. So I've worked like every stage of salmon catching and processing. Anyway, when I was flying up there in the airport, no, it wasn't then. It wasn't when I went up. It was... I flew home during Christmas break because I was going crazy in the winter, and I surprised my family at Christmas time, and so I didn't do the Alaskan winter unbroken. But you know who else doesn't always do that? Alaskans. They often spend their oil company dividend checks that every Alaskan gets. I never got it because I never stayed there long enough. I was only there like a year and a few months. They all go to Hawaii, which is only like a 4-hour flight away. Not all, but many. Yeah, if you get a map, you'll see Alaska and Hawaii right next to each other. And they're in little boxes. I don't think that's how that works. But they are kind of close, ocean-wise. Anyway, so I flew home, surprised my parents at Christmas. They were glad to have me back and to have me there for the holiday. A big, joyful family time. They were all like, dang, you're pale and vampiric looking, Mike. Then I went on a trip to Mexico with my college friend Jamie, and we rode buses south until we'd run out of money and somehow made our way back. It was great. But then when I was flying back to Alaska after that trip, feeling a little bit charged by like going to Mexico, hanging out in Bisbee, Arizona, seeing an old friend. Feeling like I could handle the winter now a little bit because I was like, yikes, going insane from the cold and dark. When I was flying back up, yeah, that must have been when it was. No, this totally did happen when I first went up there. I told all that story for nothing. Dang it, my memory. Oh, shoot. That'll be a deleted scene. No, I don't know how to delete scenes. Here's a picture of me and my friends Ray and Corey in front of this shack that we lived in for a little while. It was behind my friend's Ray's mom's house. It was a former sauna house. That was like just a place I could go. Yeah, we kind of made it our own for a while. Express more and record less. Jack Kerouac. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I would quote in 1998. Tells you everything you need to know about me. He was a 90s hippie. The worst hippie. But I was never like that good at hacky sack, you know? I mean, No, I think I was conflating two different people. I was thinking of Jenny, this like bohemian hippie young woman I met on the plane on the way up there. I think I was conflating her with the person I hung out with at the Arizona airport. When the heck was that? That must have been going back up. Jenny told me about the mud flats that a woman got stuck in once off of the coast. A helicopter came to pull her out, but the woman held on so tightly that she was ripped in half. She watched that happen from the shore at 10 years old. Dang, Jenny. Here's why this journal sucks from this time in my life. I wrote it out of order. I would just open it and write wherever. That's annoying. Anyway, at some point, traveling between Mexico and Alaska, I had a layover in Arizona at this airport, and I met a young woman who was reading this. I must have been 19 or 20. And she raved about it, and like we talked about it a bit. And then we had just like a day of adventures hanging out all over this airport. But as a result of that, I've always associated this book with a really cool person and a positive day. Squirrel, that's obscene. We just lost our clean tag. All right, this is the only Tom Robbins I currently own. I've had more over the years, and I've just gotten rid of it because I've never read it. I don't need to read this. Do you think I saw the movie of Even Cowgirls Get the Blues a long time ago? Which I don't recollect, and which I think just gave me like a general impression that this was like a zany guy. Would I recommend this book? It really is dangerous to film out my window here. I don't want anyone thinking I'm like filming stuff for the cops or something. I'm not. I'll tell you, if you want to have a happy life, don't read the news. Except you kind of need to read the news because you don't want the big things that affect you to come out of nowhere. Yikes. I enjoyed that movie. I guess I do watch a lot of stuff, but whatever. I also read. I throw rocks at the side of an abandoned building. I've got hobbies. Milton Glaser really could make a cover, huh? I'm super behind on bills and things. Hey, how about this? If anybody wants me to send them a box of books from the collection, you know, PayPal me like $50 or something. And I'll give you a lavish box. Tell me what your interests are and tastes. I expect no one to take up this offer, but if someone does, that's cool. I can use some money. My philosophy with books is they're like, you know, holding on to them really tightly would be like, you know, holding on to the sand of a beach. It's just not how it works. They come and go from your life. And the shape of your collection changes. But Tom Robbins is good. He's cool, all right. I'm a fan now. Do I think he's as good as Richard Brodigan? He might have more ideas going than Richard Brodigan, but I'm still like enjoying Brodigan more. It's an interesting comparison to make. Vonnegut came to mind also. Also Neil Gaiman in a lot of scandal at the moment. Nevertheless, he had a whole thing he created there. Tapped into, described. Perfume is a big part of this, a bottle of perfume in which this essence of immortality kind of is distilled. But it's never as plainly spoken as on the back. Like, what is the perfume's nature to their staying alive forever? They'd figured out the trick of that before the perfume, so. The scent of the perfume helps them disguise the stench of the god Pan when he travels with them to America. It says beet pollen, jasmine perfume. Cats are planning their next move. Scoping out. Such a big job ahead. I just watched Heat. They look like the cops watching from the roof. Heat with cats would be good. I'd watch that movie. The characters in this are good. The best characters are the immortal couple, for sure. But there's some eccentric figures too. This guy who's kind of like a Tom Robbins, Carl Sagan fusion, I feel like. He's got an eye patch with a 4-leaf clover on it. It drew me into a world, though. It made me look for opportunities to read it. It's a good book, right? It did make me think maybe this shouldn't be on the literary fiction shelf. This should be on the fantasy shelf. But it's really on that line. And I think it should maybe stay on the shelf it's on, but I should bring one Vonnegut and something else along these lines into the collection. There's Brodigan there already, so... Okay, so a couple of these shelves seem a little tighter than I want them to be. We'll see if a book or two falls away over time. But always reordering this. So I put back the ones I'm still reading into here, which are... Actually, it's just one. Farewell to Arms. Oh no, there's one more. Green Mansions. I'm on chapter 2. I will read this whole paperback case, and then I will evolve into my true form. That's the channel guarantee. Can't tell you how many their eyes there will be, or if you'll be able to withstand the light. But reading this whole case is going to be what does it. I ain't walking on the ground anymore after this. I'm only walking 2 inches above the ground. Okay, it's a little bit of a tight fit, but that's the whole case right there. 41, 78, 115, 153, 190. Huh. It's gone up one. I remember the last time I counted it was 189, but I've changed the books a lot, so that number's kind of staying steady around there. Good to know. I use 200 in my mind because then I think, well, if I've read 10 books, I know I've read 0.5% of the books. That's really encouraging to hear those kind of numbers. It makes me really feel like I've read a lot. Wow, a whole 0.5%. Oh, that's not quite right. What is it? 5%. If I've read 10, I've read 5%. That's cool. That's actually kind of encouraging, a little bit. Also, whatever. I could drop dead tomorrow. You can't be too attached to goals like this. You know? Someone might say, here's $1 million to stop doing your booktube channel. I hate it so much. I will have to take that offer. That could happen. Whoa, would you never read again in your life if someone said they'd give you $1 million? That seems pretty low. I don't think I would. Well, I could see agreeing to it out of situational desperation. I don't like the thought. I'm done with this thought experiment. No more. All right, pulling back out the books I'm reading. Leaving you new friends to get reacquainted. When I read The Pigman, so I need to read The Pigman's Legacy sometime. So I'm reading a Hemingway. I should read this Old Man in the Sea too. That's like an hour. I can just sit down and read that. Maybe not an hour, but like that's a short read. I remember like reading it in my room as a kid. Be like, I read that. I didn't like how the fish died. Green Mansions is interesting so far. Apparently it influenced Tarzan. I'm sure it has a lot of the exoticizing about it and racial attitudes of its time, and things about it are going to feel real dated. When I was looking around for reviews of it on the line, half the Goodreads reviews were like, I loved this when I was young. And then I reread it and I was like, yikes. I don't think it's totally yikes, but it's definitely, I'm sure it has dated and so on. He was like a very interesting writer. Guy whose parents were from New England, but he grew up in Argentina and wrote this about these jungles on the border of Argentina and Venezuela, I think. Wrote all these nonfiction books, and Hemingway and Conrad considered him an important influence. W.H. Hudson, who even knows him? The character in this book is mentioned in that story, The Veldt by Ray Bradbury, that is so good. It's in The Illustrated Man, about the virtual reality playroom that gets a little too real. And weirdly, this character not only was adapted into a flop movie starring Audrey Hepburn once long ago, but it was the basis for a DC comic book character that still turns up sometimes in reboots and so on. Went off via Wikipedia. Gave the other copy to a coworker and who suggested reading it at the same time. So that's cool. I think that's how lots of people read. They read at the same time as somebody else. Oh, you're reading that? I'll read that. YouTube just enables something that happens in real life. That's cool. And this is good. I just need to get back into it. I stepped away, lost my momentum with this one. Really, that's what Johnny Got His Gun should be called. Ba-dum-bum. It's about a guy with no arms and no legs. Really no face. Yeah. This isn't. This is about someone who gets injured in a rocket blast or grenade attack or something. He has a bad dream and becomes a lettuce farmer. I don't think you're actually reading this. Oh, I am. It's just been a minute. I was going to read this alongside my friend Doug, but he's like plowing through it. I need to pick that one up too. Anyway, if I've read all these books, it's going to be so awesome. I really will shed my human form and transcend if I read all these. I can feel it. Sorry, I almost forgot. This video is about Jitterbug perfume. Check it out. Check out Liminal Space's 2 videos on it too. Whether you read it or you haven't. That's a great channel. That really kind of inspired this channel. A couple of channels did, but that one really did. So sorry, Chris. You inspired a very low budget, no budget channel. No frills. It's pretty much just Mike talking about books. So, I don't know. Let's chat it up in the comments. What do y'all think of Tom Robbins? You like this guy? If I read another book by him, what should I read next? I hear good things about Skinny Legs and All. And Still Life with Woodpecker. Also, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Huh. Yeah, like when I kind of discovered Nick Hornby's writing, I just read everything by him. It's like so nice to find someone that like amuses you and makes you laugh and so on. When you find a writer that just works for you. I think this guy mostly works for me. I want to read more of his. This book was a pleasure, and I think I would probably like it more a second time in like 3 years. Because like, you know, a lot of times when you encounter art that works in a different way, it seems alien and wrong until it teaches you how to encounter it, you know? I read a review of 2666 to that effect, and I'm like, that's exactly how that book is. Like, when I first read Catch-22, I'm like, this is the most annoying book I've ever read. I didn't laugh once. I thought it was so horrible. And then my friend Dakota was just like, no, man, you read it wrong. You got to read it a second time. Check it out. And he, like, made the case for it, and I reread it, and I'm like, yeah, actually, this is one of my favorite books. I just had to let go of some hang-ups about it, like being annoyed at recurring motifs and things. Apparently, that's called writing. Anyway, I read a book. Did it make my death any farther away? No. Did it solve anything in the world? I think it kind of maybe tweaked my attitude a little bit. Made me think I definitely need to work that Gulch job again, that summer camp again. I need to renew with nature. I would follow the pipes of Pan with the masses into the woods. I like the idea of Tom Brown Jr. living in the woods with only a knife. That's really cool. Like for a year. That'd be like a fun challenge to give to yourself. If you die, oh well. At least you died cold in the forest. What a strange cover. It evokes Dali. Cover by Stephanie Gerber. That's an insane author photo. That's so funny. Like, that's someone. I don't think I want to make my image like a big part of my writing career. Kind of hard to avoid it when you like write about yourself, I suppose. But like the author photo I want to use is this picture that shows me as just like a black silhouette in front of a tree, like a hole in the middle of the tree. It's fantastic. Also once had a picture with pages from my book reflected in my glasses while I was looking at a laptop screen. I was like, that's kind of appropriate. My former brother-in-law Phil did a really cool one. This is his book, The Clearing. This is the rare collection of poetry I've said before that could totally be adapted into a movie. It's about so much grief. Like, my sister took her own life and was married to him. So he has poems about that. His mom died. My mom died around the same time. Like, he was very much a part of our family. Phil's such a good poet. Dang. Check it out, Richard Wilbur. Talking about my former bro-in-law. I always liked his author photo because, look, his head is exactly on the spine of the bookcase. So he's got, like, the intellectual bookish world on one side, and then he's got the trees outside the window on the other. I'm like, that's a well-composed photo. It says jacket photographed by Philip White. So that's a concept photo. I love it. Oh, no. Author photographed by Lisa Williams. That's his wife. Well, it's a well-composed, I feel like it's probably a thought-out photo. If that's accidental, that's destiny. Incredible book. I'll look at this book and get a little sad about it when we go look at this case later. That's a guarantee. I'll also see the longest book title in the collection. Maybe I'll do this, look at this section next, after these Lake Powell related piles. I also, with these three, I want to do one on the Lake Powell book-length chapter that I've written, since it seems like a culmination of all those books we looked at. Whatever, 10 people will watch it. That's enough to complete the ancient ritual, the one you're all unwittingly a part of. Hey, Prismo, you really are the night itself. Tell everyone thank you for watching. Use your human words like you do when no one else is around and it's just me and I'm not filming. Come on. Okay, beam it to their minds. That's fine too. Squirrel, your fans want to know. What brand of conditioner do you use? Saliva? Your own saliva? Squirt for real. Squirrel could probably be a showcat. You're so bitey. I think Prismo could be too, but people are biased toward Fluffy. She's so cute. Oh. Well, I guess I should come clean and say that this channel is actually ironic. I don't actually like reading. I do it, but I don't like it. And it's stupid and you shouldn't do it either. All right. Bye, everyone. Good night.